Listen up, healthcare leaders. It's Arlene Smith, and we're back for season 2, episode 1. And my question to you is, are you stuck? You know what I'm talking about. Going through the motions of leadership, not feeling like you're making a difference. You're struggling, you're frustrated. You're like, why am I doing this? Like not feeling like you're making a difference in your team members' lives. Well, then you're human and then you're a leader. That's the first part of the equation. But I'm going to remind you, remember, leadership is probably one of the most important aspects of providing care to the people that we serve in healthcare, right? Because your team members are being led by you, and they are turning around and determining how they're going to provide care based on the way you lead them. So I know that's like an aha moment for a lot of people. It's like, I didn't really think about that. And if you're struggling and you're feeling like you are a bit stuck, like you're not feeling like every day you are making a difference, I want to remind you that we work in the field of healthcare. And by nature, it's very fluid and it's dynamic and it's complex and it's complicated. You know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things that prevent us from being effective right out of the gate. And not only is that the case, you're running on all cylinders and your people are taking care of other people based on how you're interacting. So if you are struggling every single day and you're feeling like, I just don't know if I have it in me to keep going, then that's okay. You're human. And so welcome to the team, right? We've all been there. So I would tell you first to look inward and think about, how are you feeling every single day? Like, how are you just feeling? Let's start there. And if you can think about it and conceptualize this, like when I come to work as a leader, am I like ready to go? Like, do I have like passion? Am I operating from my values that are important to me? Are my values aligned with my behaviors? Like, are all those things that I'm experiencing coming from that place? Because again, that speaks to your credibility as a leader. Like, your team members are not going to follow you if your behaviors aren't aligned with your values. It just doesn't work out. That's what produces that culture of excellence, like of where you're going to get to. And so if you are finding that that's maybe where you're disconnected, that's okay too. But I'm going to tell you, step 1 is always recognizing that we've all been there, right? We've been there where sometimes we're stuck, sometimes we're not stuck. It's leadership and it's healthcare, right? They come in ebbs and flows, right? And I'm going to remind you that the secret to all this is really looking at things from a set space of balance. And I will say this over and over and over and over again to you. It is always going to be about balance. It's going to be when you're up, what are you doing when you're up to keep yourself sustained? And it is not realistic to think you are always going to be running on all cylinders all the time. That's where self-care comes in. That's where we have to take that step back. We have to step up and we've got to look at it from a totally different perspective. Like a 30,000 foot view. What can I do differently? Or what is leading me down? This is something in my life, my personal life, in my professional life, right? Like, and it's also that recognition that when you're low and you're down, like you're not staying there, right? You're taking some form of action. Because, when you think about it, we are all connected, right? Like your teams, like you're creating this space where you want people to come to work every day and provide outstanding care, regardless of what's happening around them. I mean, that's your goal. Like you want to inspire them, you want to motivate them, you want to drive them to get to that state of excellence. But the reality is, when you think about it, because we're all connected, all of our energy sort of moves with one another, right? If I walk into a space and everybody's miserable and I'm a leader that's also miserable, well, the chances are that everybody stays in that state of misery is going to be extremely high, right? But if I'm coming in and I'm creating that space, right, where I'm creating that high level of energy, chances are that I'm going to be able to, over time, really work with my team to get them to sort of shift, to look at things from a different perspective. It reminds me of that old video back, I don't even know when it was created, but it's old. Zig Ziglar's Kick the Cat. I remember seeing about 20 some years ago, maybe 25 years ago, as a leadership training. And the whole concept is Zig Ziglar's telling this entire story about, a person that starts off their day and something bad happens at home, right? And that person comes in, and every single person is impacted by that one single event that happened to that person at home. And at the end of the long story, and just YouTube it, you can watch the quick video on it, you'll see Zig Ziglar says, wouldn't it have been easier just to kick the cat in the very beginning and cut all those people out of the scenario? And I think that's impactful, because when you really think about it, when it comes to leadership, we have to often stop and look in the mirror at times, and we have to face what's in our reality. And that's a hard truth sometimes for people, especially if you're stuck. You might be thinking, I don't know if I want to admit that I'm stuck, because this, we got into leadership because we were somebody that was driven, and we wanted to take that passion and that excellence in everything that we were doing and teach that to the people and the teams to inspire them to get them to where they're at. So to admit that you're stuck is kind of admitting that I'm not where I need to be. And that's okay too. But I also think about that great quote from Howard Zinn that is, you can't stay neutral on a moving train. And I know that quote is more around, this idea of injustices and choosing a path that which is the right path to go. But I'm going to challenge you to think about it a little differently. I think when I hear that quote, I want to imagine that really is our drive to action. Like, if you're neutral on a moving train and the train is moving forward, you gotta keep moving forward. And in today's healthcare, with all of the challenges that we face, right? Like reimbursement issues and high levels of acuity, right? People are having really complex issues that they're dealing with, financial and economic and family issues, trauma, lots of stuff that's going on. I want you to imagine that if you were that type of leader where you understood, if you stay stuck, how that impacts your team. It is absolutely going to impact your team in a way in which you are not going to see them coming to work and doing their best and greatest work. In fact, they're just going to be disconnected, and it's because you're role modeling the same behaviors. So I want you to just really get this concept. Without any action, you are going to remain stuck. And again, leaders are here for a reason. Your greatest responsibility. I keep thinking of this mentor. I'm hearing this message that she used to say to me all the time. And I remember when I was a junior mentor, she pulled me aside once and said, I want you to remember your greatest responsibility is the people that report to you. Your job is to manage people, to make them feel as if they have something to do. And when you fail to connect with them, if you fail to inspire them, you don't get them to that point where you want to get them, then you're failing in leadership. And that is so impactful and profound. So I was thinking about this book that, boy, when I was stuck, and I'm thinking about this at one point in my career, this was way back in the early 2000s. I want to say, well, maybe it was 2007 or 2009. I remember picking up this book called Unstuck, and it's been rewritten since then. It's written by Sandra Spataro and Keith Yamashita, and I devoured this book. I think it was really, really interesting, and I want to share just a few things to think about when it comes to leadership to get you unstuck. And you can pick up this great book because it's awesome. But in the introduction, I want to touch a little bit about the story of Unstuck and what they say in the book. So Sandra Spataro is a professor of organizational behavior at the Johnson School of Management at Cornell University, with a passion for teams, diversity, leadership, and what makes organizations effective. And Keith Yamashita is a co-founder of a firm in San Francisco that works with CEOs to reinvent, rejuvenate, and recenter their organizations. And I just love that sort of opening of like who they are. And I love how this book sort of came about. And the book came about because Sandy was teaching an MBA course at Yale, and she invited Keith to teach a few classes on how to flex in leadership and communication skills in very complicated times. I'm just going to say, and I'm going to put a pin in that, like, isn't that like healthcare? Like, that's in an essence of what you have to do every single day. You have to learn how to lead your teams through these very complicated and complex situations, right? And I'm going to tell you, I think they created these tools that I think are just really impactful, and you get to start thinking about things in a different state. And in the book, on page 18 of the book, I'm just going to highlight a couple things because I think it's so important what they say here. They say, getting unstuck is not merely the act of treating the symptom of being stuck, but rather of getting to the root cause. Or even better, it's about trying to fix the whole system of your company, your department, or your team to become more effective. You must master ways to help get the system back into balance. And I love, love, love that. And there's all these things to really think about as a leader. Your purpose and like what you're bringing to the table, right? Your strategy, the way you structure things and your internal processes, your metrics, your reward systems, and your core culture. And I'm not going to go deep into that because what I want you to really focus on, again, and probably some of the greatest work that I've experienced in my life is this idea and notion that when it comes to leadership, the tendency is we want to fix everything. I mean, we're kind of in the role because we're like highly proficient at fixing stuff, like fixing things that aren't working well. And so the tendency is like, I'm just going to get in a little here and I'm going to get a little here and I'm going to do a little here. Listen, I'm not going to lie to you. This is my greatest life work is I'm constantly encroaching into other things and saying like, oh, I could help here and I could do this and I could do this. And I'm going to remind you like part of what it really needs to just circle back in to like the things that are within your control. Like, so if you're working in a large hospital setting, right, and you're a unit manager, let's say, you can't control sort of the way everything's run, right? You can control the way you run your unit, right? The way you interact with the people that you serve, right? The way the processes flow, the way things are happening, the way education is provided and people are trained and the way people are responding, and all of those things are within your control, right? And so that's really where I want you to focus on. And if you are struggling with identifying like the root cause to what is causing you to get stuck, let me give you a little strategy that has always worked for me. Ask people that you love or they love you, like, what do they see? It's that very simple. What do they see? And that is so incredibly important because the people that are closest to you who love you are going to see things that you're not willing to see and or admit. And so it means you have to be open to receive that, right? Like I can't ask for feedback and be unwilling to receive it, right? That's where conflict starts. And that's where, as a leader, it even cuts off that relationship and your credibility as a leader with your teams, right? Because I've asked you for feedback, you've shared it, and I'm like, no, I'm not listening to you, right? That's how it manifests. And it's no different with the people that we love, right? So if I ask somebody like, hey, what do you see in me? Like, and they share that with you, you have to be willing to be brave enough and bold enough and courageous enough to like see it. And then I'm going to tell you, once you get that little piece of information, step 3 is really just to like sit in quiet silence a little bit and let that marinate a bit. Like think about it to a different level. What is really holding you back? And I'm going to tell you, chances are it's going to be fear. Simply put, fear is what's holding you back. Fear of the unknown, like, oh, I don't know. What if I say something to that employee? What if I say something to my boss? What if I do this? What's the impact? What is their response going to be? What if they interpreted it this way? It's all fear-based feelings. And let me just remind you here in life school, you are good to no one if you are stuck and you're operating from a place of fear. You're afraid to make a move and to admit you need to make a change. We've all had it. We all experience it. Trust me when I tell you, I could probably do this to a level of mastery where, I myself have prevented myself from stepping forward into what I knew I should have done because I thought, well, what if? Even with this podcast, I remember when I wanted to launch it, I remember telling the engineers at the studio, well, what if all these things happen, right? So instead, what I want you to do is really operate from a place of, instead of being afraid of things, having this spirit of fear being in your body, what would happen to you if you replace that fear with a different feeling? Now, I want you to hear me out because I'm going to get a little woo-woo on you here. And for those of you that are like, I don't know about this, what Arlene is talking about. But what if instead of sitting in this place of fear, that you just step forward by sending love out into the world? Like, I have this faith that everything is going to work out because I love myself. I love what I'm doing. I love everything that I want to do, and I'm going to send those feelings of love out into the world. How could that change the way your team see you, the way things are perceived, if everything you do is from a spirit of, instead of it being something that's fear-based, right? Instead, we're retraining our mind and we're saying, nope, that's it. No matter what happens to me, if somebody says something to me, I'm not going to respond in frustration or get annoyed or allow that energy to take on and manifest in some kind of negative emotion that's going to travel through my body. Because you know what happens, right? When we allow this stuff to attach to our spirits, right? Pretty quickly, over like from 0 to like 100, we're manifesting that, and we're everything we're seeing is only in that emotion. So again, if you train your mind to think about things instead, like, okay, so I'm stuck. I love what I do. I love being a leader. Or maybe you're thinking, I don't love being a leader. Well, then if you don't love being a leader, you're not a tree. You can change, right? Like, move, do something different in your world, because I'm going to remind you that leadership is so critically important. It means that you have to develop the skills and the competencies to effectively lead the workforce. These challenges are real challenges. It's not something you can't show up, be present, and be involved in. It is fully participatory. You have to be present. So if you're stuck, it's okay to be stuck, but just recognize getting yourself unstuck has to happen, right? And the quickest way that I can suggest you do it is, again, really going down to that root cause. What's holding you back? Looking at it from a different perspective. What is that fear that is holding me back, and sending signals of love out to that fear instead. And again, for some of you, it might be in your exploration, in like your discovery of like, what is it that's keeping me stuck? It might be like self-care. It might be something totally related to you. That happened to me completely after serving during COVID. I mean, I shut down. When I say I shut down, I mean I shut it down. It's like I withdrew from everything because it was such a dark time for me, and I kept replaying many of those situations of providing direct care over and over again, and there was so much pain that I was experiencing, and it was really, really hard to look at the world from a place of hope. I mean, I really sat in that pit of despair. That happened to me every single day. And so what I needed in that moment that I wasn't giving myself was self-care, because I was working too long. I wasn't eating properly. I wasn't hydrating properly, gaining a ton of weight, drinking way too much wine. Like, there was all those things that I was doing. So I had to take that time away and do self-care. So like, listen, guilty as charged. I totally get it and I totally understand. Sometimes we have to look at things and we have to say, what is holding me back? And if it's those things of self-care, then figure out what you can do to put that in your life. And now for me, I've just learned that again, have to continue to keep moving forward to feel like the work that I was called to do, right? To inspire leaders to be great, to inspire healthcare workers to be like the greatest version of them so they can come back and do this great work every single day. If I was going to do that, I have to be moving forward. Can't be stuck on that neutral train. So for me, that self-care had to be something I built into my routine. I mean, I had to learn how to slay the dragon, wake up way earlier than most people, right? To get that self-care in the early morning hours so I could, be at work by 7:30 and do a full day to be able to do what I needed to do and then come home to my family and again, still operate and still be able to provide care, right? Like, so self-care is so important. So look to somebody like a coach, a mentor, if it has to be a therapist, right? It has to be a spiritual advisor, whoever is going to give you that self-care. That absolutely is something you want to look at. When you're looking for that root cause, don't be afraid of change. Like, remember, leadership is about paving the way for people to get much more comfortable to being agile and flexible with change. Healthcare is like nonstop change. It changes like constantly. And the landscape of healthcare is constantly changing. So if you're not teaching your teams to be nimble and you're not doing it yourself, then you're doing a huge disservice to them, because that by nature is what you are supposed to be doing when it comes to leadership. And one tactic that always worked for me to get me unstuck was to have conversations with my future self. I know this sounds silly, but I used to keep a journal. I keep a journal for everything. I've probably, I don't know, hundreds of journals around my house. My husband gets annoyed because I have journals everywhere and they're all around the house in all different pieces. I probably have 10 journals in my backpack right here. But I'm always writing things down. And so write a little note to your future self of what you want to become, right? And there's really incredible power to pen. When you put things down that's coming from a place of, again, something that you're doing the deep work. I'm looking at what I need to be successful, and I'm willing to not write down what I think I should be doing, because, that's the easy work, right? It's doing the deep work is what do I need to do? And I'm writing it down, right? And I'm telling my future self, I need to do these things. For me, self-care was important, right? I have to go to the gym. I have to do a better job with nutrition and diet. I've got to get better at eating meals on structured times instead of just winging it and realizing, oh, it's 2:00 and now I'm going to consume 1,000 calories because I'm starving and I haven't eaten all day, right? That is not going to help me. So we all have to do it. And for me, I'm not going to lie to you, it's life's work. I'm constantly doing this, and I'm constantly doing working towards making things better. But maybe write some notes down to your future self, and you're going to get some clues there of what you should be doing. And again, really think about when you get those clues, what is the basis of that? Is it fear-based stuff? Or because we're all going to experience fear, that's going to happen. It's going to come to you. But if you can just challenge yourself to remind yourself and train your mind that when those feelings come within me, instead of me succumbing to those feelings, instead of me having those feelings manifest out and allowing that fear to run rampant. And then again, before I know it, now I'm even deeper in that pit of despair, and I'm really stuck, right? Instead of doing that, I'm going to get myself unstuck, and I'm going to send love out to my body and to my mind and to my future self and where I want to be. And always remember, when it comes to leadership, there's no cookie cutter way to be a leader. Listen, I have studied so many different principles over the past 30 years when it comes to leadership to really understand it, to really try to manifest it. I can't stress this enough. There is no cookie cutter way. You've got to find the way that works for you, that is authentic to you. And I know working in the field of healthcare and being a registered nurse by background, I was driven into the field for this incredible sense of purpose. Like I wanted to make a difference. When I was taking care of somebody and I was providing care to somebody, it made me feel good. And I wanted to be that leader that could inspire people and motivate them and to teach them many of the things that I had learned along the way that people didn't educate me on, right? Those things that kept me in a place of staying stuck. So number one is recognizing that if you are stuck, that's totally okay. And there's no cookie cutter answer to get you out. But what you can do is do the deep work to really understand what specifically is that root cause. And again, if you're not familiar with the 5 whys in lean methodology, asking why 5 times to every question, it often by that fifth question will get you down to the true root cause of what's going on. So, why am I stuck? Well, I'm going through the motions and I feel like I can't enjoy the work that I do. I don't feel like it has meaning. Why doesn't it have meaning? Well, I'm working, I don't know, too many hours in a day and I have no time for my family and self-care. Why don't you have time for your family and self-care? Well, have to make meals. I have to do laundry. Why is that, right? I remember being in marriage therapy many years ago and having conversations with a therapist. And I would say like, I have to do the dishes and I have to do that. And she'd be like, why don't you just ask your husband to help you? Like, will you help your wife? And he's like, of course I help her, right? We split things up, right? So some of it is stuff we put on ourselves, right? And I don't want you to forget that. Like, we don't have to have everything controlled, right? Some of the most beautiful things that you're going to experience in your career in leadership is going to come from relinquishing control, surrendering to this essence of there's something that is just going to go by this natural state of flow when I don't have my tight grips on things so much. And in healthcare, you can't have tight grips on anything because the landscape is shifting underneath our feet every single day. And so as leaders, we have to teach this. We have to lead the way. So if you want to get yourself unstuck, do the deep work, diagnose it, figure out what you need to do, and then take action. And don't be stressed about what that action looks like. Listen, we are our worst critics. I will tell you, I am the worst at it. I can't tell you how many times I would say to myself, like, I can't spend a Saturday laying in the bed and like extending my rest for long periods of time. And then it was like, it dawned on me, I was like, wait, why am I thinking if my body needs rest, my body needs rest, right? It's telling me like it's okay to rest, right? And we're our own worst critic. Sometimes we do things to ourselves where we are actually creating the conditions where we're causing ourselves to be stuck. So keep that in mind too. And don't forget, like my go-to thing after all my years of like when I read this book and spent like 3 years in my leadership development plan trying to learn strategies to make sure that I showed resilience despite adversity. Really, the simple secret for me was, again, learning what worked for me. It was filling my soul with music on my drive into work. Like, man, I would jam it out. And no matter what was happening to me before I left for the house and got in the car, like I spent that time like filling my spirit up with like a higher vibration of like music that kind of hit me hard, right? And whether that music was suspect or it was good or it was, it didn't matter. It was just intended to kind of shift my energy. And when you can do that, when you can start out your day shifting your energy, trust me, it's going to be those tiny little things that are going to get you unstuck. It's going to be those little things that you decide to do as a daily routine every day. Take care of yourself, right? Make that cup of coffee and sit for 5 minutes and enjoy that cup of coffee, before rushing out the door. And yes, we have to wake up earlier to do it. Of course you will. But trust me when I say you will start to see these things come to light. And if anything else, I'm just going to remind you, leadership is really about taking your teams to a transformative place, right? Where they can see a world where care can be provided in a manner which they can do it in any situation, right? Because they have the tools and the resources and you're teaching them, this is how we do it, right? And to do that, it means that you have to constantly be taking some kind of action. So get out of that unstuck mode, get moving forward. And listen, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, but more importantly, I hope you learned something. And if you're not stuck, then good for you. Go help somebody who is stuck. Like, share with them simple ways that you think will help them. Listen, I hope you join me on a future podcast. Thank you. Goodbye.